What a market day already, right? We saw a bunch of selling earlier on. It looked like broad-based selling, and then, I don't know, some good news out of NVIDIA, and we feel like a tech turnaround. And now we've got some buying into the close, guys. What's going on?
Yeah, it's a little wild. I'm just doing some calculations on the Bloomberg terminal here. We were down as much as 1.6% on the S&P 500. Now we're up by more than 1.1%. It was a swing of 2.8% today, just from one direction to the other. Kind of wild.
Well, sometimes it's not the final numbers that are the most interesting part of the day. It's more the movement. And I'll just point out that ever since about midday at noon, it's been a straight shot up. It's as if, the debate is over, like people can move on. CPI is over. Sure, PPI comes in, but does that really move the needle for anyone?
I honestly still want to blame funds. I feel like it says a lot that you saw the big decline on the cash open, not in the futures market, and the funds don't sell in the futures market. So you got that heavy selling pressure, and then I guess we're looking at technical bottom maybe, and then that climb higher. And are we able to hold on to those gains tomorrow?
And I'm glad you brought up technicals, because we did hit a lot of those key technical levels at the lower end yesterday. And of course, in the previous session prior to that here, a big turnaround here, despite a majority of the S&P 500 stocks in the red here. The ones that matter most are in the green, including a big gain from NVIDIA. The S&P 500 finishing the day higher by almost 60 points here, a 1% gain on the day. The Dow up about 2 to 0.3% on the day, roughly about 120-point gain. The NASDAQ, 369 points added to that index, 2.2% higher here on the day. And the Russell 2000 trying to get in on the action as well. A gain on the day, a flip-flop from red to green, 6 points higher, or about 0.3%.
All right, guys. So after earlier seeing some broad-based selling, we're finishing on the S&P 500 almost an even split. You've got 231 names, Scarlet, to the upside and about 268 to the downside.
All right, taking a look at the sector performances here, tech is by and far the winner, gaining more than 3%. Consumer discretionary also up by better than 1%, and communication services. So it's big tech leading the way. On the downside, energy losing almost 1%, and it's worth noting here, energy, the big losers are the past 5 days, the past 1 month, the past 3 months, and the past 6 months as well. Staples and financials also finishing in the red.
All right, let's get to some of the individual gainers, if I may. And this one definitely atop the S&P 500, at least one of the top gainers in the S&P. We're talking about NVIDIA, a gain of about 8% here, really helping to also leading the overall tech area higher. We did have NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang coming out. We know that this is obviously, when you think about AI, this is the company we all look to in terms of the demand for their chips. He did point out at a conference, Goldman Sachs conference in San Francisco, a tech conference, and talked about the demand so great for his products. Everyone wants to be first and everyone wants to be most. And he talked about kind of customers, some tense relations, trying to meet their demand. So anyway, some optimism in terms of moving into NVIDIA today. Another one, First Solar. We talked about the debate, and we did see some debate trades here. And First Solar and some of those alternative energy companies and renewable stocks definitely winning in today's session, gaining in today's session. So First Solar up about 15% here. It too
is the sun alternative? Welcome back, girl.
Things I missed, things I didn't miss. No, I'm just kidding. First Solar is the number one gainer in the S&P. See, if I was on my iPhone, you would get the heart. S&P 500, number one gainer, First Solar. We do know Vice President Harris was one of the key supporters in the Inflation Reduction Act. We know former President Trump, has wanted to roll that back entirely. So we know that that was certainly something that gave a lot to renewables in the alternative energy space. And this one, courtesy of my co-host, Children's Place, WOA, up 85% here in today's session. The company came out, reported an adjusted profit for the second quarter, while Wall Street had been projecting a loss. Keep in mind, though, the short interest on this one's pretty high, about 48%. So there might have been a fair amount of short covering going on when it outperformed. So, all right, over to you.
All right, let's talk about some underperformance. Campbell Soup Company, Staples under pressure today. Campbell Soup Company down 3.8%, among the worst performers on a percentage basis in the S&P 500. Down the most at one point today in more than a year. The slump today comes after the statistics from the Bureau of Labor Statistics showed that the year-over-year increase in food at home inflation moderated in August from July. Also, did you guys see earlier in the week, Campbell Soup said it was dropping the word soup?
I did
from
see
the
that.
company's name.
I
So
did
does that
see
mean
that.
they don't make soup anymore?
They
No,
still
I just
make
wanna be
soup, but
broad.
yeah, they want to do
okay.
everything. Campbell's
Okay.
company. Carol
So
mentioned.
like when Apple Computer dropped computer. And
Or
Yes.
Tesla Motors dropped the motors part.
Got it.
Yeah, it's just an evolution of the brand, right?
Nice.
DJT, Trump Media and Technology. Carol did mention what we're seeing today in the wake of last night's presidential debate, a reversal of the Trump trade. Shares of Trump Media and Technology, the social media company of Donald Trump, down more than 10% today. Also, another potential headwind is that lockup period expiring as soon as September 19th. So the former president could actually start selling shares. Finally, well, actually, I got two more for you guys.
Two more?
Yeah, two more to celebrate Carol
Hung in
being
the air
back.
there.
Are you pulling a Massar?
I'm pulling a Carol Massar. Very briefly, I did want to check in on shares of GameStop. They fell close to 12% after the company reported second quarter net sales that came in below consensus estimates. They also filed to sell up to an extra 20 million shares. And then Designer Brands, DBI is the ticker. Shares sliding. It's the parent company of Keds and DSW, Designer Shoe Warehouse, down more than 11% today. Hit the lowest since 2020. The company reported an unexpected decline in comp sales for its second quarter, a significant EPS shortfall. Management said it saw, quote, sustained pressure on challenge categories, dress and seasonal. They cut annual forecasts. The company's down more than 40% so far this year, Alex.
Yep, tough stuff. All right, let's get to the bond market here. A sell-off now. You had a sell-off earlier in the day when the CPI hit. You had 2 years kind of jumping 6 basis points. Then when you hit the low of the stock market, you wound up having some buying coming into the bond market. And then once the market bottomed, then you saw a reversal in yields. And then 2-year yields closed up by about 5 basis points. So a nice little round trip in the bond market. Your 10-year auction went really well. We get $22 billion worth of 30-year coming tomorrow at 1 p.m.
Kind of interesting. We came into this morning, of course, with that big CPI report here. I guess it surprised to the upside. I mean, it was like 1/10 of a percentage points, but I guess that was a surprise, and it raises a lot of questions about where prices stand, and more importantly, just how people are interpreting it. And I guess for that matter, the one person that really matters, which is Jay Powell.
Yeah, exactly. Having said that, in terms of higher prices, I don't know if you've noticed it, but coffee prices and Robusta, am I saying it right? Robusta beans?
Robusta.
Robusta. Highest since the 1970s. And so there's a fascinating story on the Bloomberg that talks about farmers in Uganda and other places that thieves have been actually stealing some of the coffee beans, even right off the trees. And it just gets into kind of a broader thing. They're just expensive, and so they're a target.
They're using dogs to guard plantations. They're using bees to guard plantations. This is to stop thieves from snatching those unharvested beans straight from the trees under the cover of darkness. It's a problem that's become so much more serious as these prices have gone up.
Yeah, and this is going to continue to be a big part of the story here. We are getting some earnings crossing the wire here. We're in that secondary phase here of the tail end of earnings season. Oxford Industries out with its results. The shares moving lower here in after-hours trade with net sales coming in just a little bit light. The company actually saying that in the third quarter, it sees 310 to 325 million in sales. The high end of that range is well below the average of street estimates of about $352 million here. We should also point out EPS in the most recent quarter also missing $2.77 a share. The street was looking for $3.04.
And Oxford Industries is the owner of Tommy Hilfiger and Lilly Pulitzer, which is probably more well known to most consumers than Oxford Industries. Have you guys also noticed, I don't know if you go to McDonald's pretty regularly, there's one near the office and I go there every once in a while, and you can get through the whole transaction without really talking to anyone. There's a kiosk there that allows you to punch in your order, but they're doing more and more of this where they're installing digital ordering stations that can now take cash and give change as well, so that, you know, there's really no need for human interaction if you wanted to avoid it.
Wait, people still use cash?
Yes.
That's more to the point. I'm
Yes,
like, wait,
a lot of
there are
people do.
who do
Yeah,
that?
yeah, definitely.
We trust a robot with our money, I guess that's the
Well, now
question.
that all these places, I'm not saying McDonald's does, but now all these places are saying that you have to pay like 3 or 5% more when you pay with a credit card. Have you guys seen that when you go out to dinner and
Yeah,
stuff?
definitely.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm like, using more cash now than I have in years.
Some of the bodegas actually put out prices that say this is how much it is in cash, $2.50. This is how much it is if you pay with credit card, $2.58.
I also wonder if this is just people can't get workers, or they're trying to cut costs.
I think they're
or
cutting
overhead,
costs.
Cutting
right?
costs. No one wants to pay Visa or MasterCard if they can help it.
Yeah.
But also with the
Let's say
digital
that
ordering
McDonald's-
kiosks, you don't have to have people take your order when you can have a computer do it.
And nobody has to know that you're not a kid and you're buying a Happy Meal.
There you go.
That's a really good
Secret
point.
safe with the robot, Carol.